In this section, we will learn how to solve polynomial equations by factoring. Okay, equations. Okay, once we have an equation, we can solve the equation for variable x or variable y. So, if an equation is 0, let's look at this property, zero factor property. This is really, really important property. So, if an equation is 0, so a times some product, let's say some product is equal to 0. So in order for the product to be 0, either one of these factors is 0, then the result is 0. So 0 times some number is 0, and a times some number, the a times 0 is also 0. So here is a product, a times b times c times d, and this is equal to 0. Then if any one of these four factors is 0, then the result is 0. So for example, x minus 1 times x minus 2, let's say this is equal to 0. Then if this factor, I don't know what the x value is, but if that some x value makes this factor 0, then 0 times x minus 2 will be 0 as well. The equation will be 0. So if you set this factor to 0 and find x, set this factor is equal to 0, then plus 1 each side, then x equals 1. So if x equals 1, then 1 minus 1 is 0. So this factor becomes 0. So the result is 0. So when we solve an equation, if one side of the equation is 0, and the other side of the equation is a product, not addition or subtraction. If one side of the equation is a product and the other side is 0, then we can set each factor to 0. This factor to 0 and another factor to equal to 0. Then solve for each factor, each equation. Then, those are the solutions to these equations. So if a times b is equal to 0, then what? A is 0 or b is 0. A is 0 or b is 0. So using this property, let's try example. Okay, example 2. Okay, example 2 is x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. So I want to solve this equation for the variable x. So what are the variable values of x so that the equation will be true? So using the zero factor property, the right side is 0. So why don't we factor the left hand side, trinomial in the left side of the equation? If this is factorable, then we can set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. Okay, so let's try to factor this trinomial. X squared is x times x. 6 is 2 times 3. And the product has to be negative. So one of them has to be negative. So let's put the negative sign on 3. So this is 2x. And this product is negative 3x. The sum is negative x. Okay, if we put the negative sign on 2, then the result will be positive x. So you can switch the negative sign. Then this is same as the term in the middle. So we can rewrite the equation as a product of binomials in this case. So x plus 2, the first line, and the second line, x minus 3 is equal to 0. So we just factor the left side of the equation. So since a product, this is a product equals 0, so we can set each factor equal to 0. So let's set the first factor is equal to 0. We don't need parentheses. So let's set the first factor is equal to 0. We have another one, or x minus 3 is equal to 0. So whether this factor is equal to 0 or this factor is equal to 0, then the equation becomes 0. So from the first equation, we subtract 2 from each side, then x equals 2. So we found one value of x, or from the second equation, plus 3 each side, then x equals 3. So there are two variables of x, 2 and 3. So whenever x is 2 or 3, this trinomial becomes 0. The equation is true. So the solution is 2 and 3. Okay, let's solve this equation. Okay, we will use zero factor property. So put all the terms to the left so that the right side of the equation is 0. So one side of the equation is 0. So let's move this 12 to the other side. Then once we move a term to the other side, the term changes the sign. So it's going to be negative 12 is equal to 0. You can subtract 12 each side. Minus 12 here, minus 12 here. Then this one cancel out 0. And what we have is negative 12. Negative 12. So when you move something to the other side, it becomes negative 3x. For example, in this case. So we have a trinomial on one side and 0 on the other side. Let's factor this trinomial. So the first term is x times 2x, and negative 12 is, we can try 2 times 6, or 3 times 4, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, then, or 4 times 3. So we can try, one possible combination. Why don't we try 4 times 3? Okay, let's try 4 times 3. Then 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, this gotta be negative sign. So the product has to be negative sign. So one of these two numbers must have a negative. So why don't we put the negative sign on 3? So multiply these two, then 8x. Multiply these two, then negative 3x is equal to, the sum is 5x, same as the term in the middle. So the left side of the equation is x plus 4, 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. So this binomial and this binomial. Alright, so using the zero factor property, we're going to set this factor to 0 and this binomial equal to 0. So if x plus 4 is equal to 0, x plus 4 is equal to 0, or 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Then from the first equation, x is equal to, move to the other side, minus 4, or from this one, 2x is equal to, move this to the other side, positive 3, and divide each side by 2, so x equals 3 over 2. So we have two values of x. X is negative 4 or 3/2. So these are the solutions to this equation. Okay, let's solve this equation. So as usual, move all the terms to one side, and so that the other side of the equation is 0. So move this one to the left, so minus 6x. Then x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 0. So the equation is 0, so let's factor this trinomial. Then x times x, 16 is, it can be 2 times 8, 2 times 8, or 4 times 4. So let's try 4 times 4. And then it's got to be both positive. The product has to be positive. So why don't we put both negative? Because, we need negative result. So both negative still makes positive 16. Then this product is negative 4x. This cross product is negative 4x. The sum is negative 8x, which is same as the term in the middle. So this equation is equal to x minus 4 times x minus 4 is equal to 0. And these two are the same, so anyway, let's make it both zeros. Then from the first factor, x minus 4 equals 0, then what is it? X equals 4. X equals 4. And from the second one, also x equals 4. So we have two values of x, which is 4 and 4, same value. So the answer is 4. Now 4 occurred twice. So anyway, the answer is 4. We call this is a repeated solution. This solution 4 is repeated twice. So we can say the solution is repeated solution, x equals 4. Okay, let's use the same method. Collect all the terms on one side of the equation. So this will be 3x cubed. Move this one to the left, then minus 15x squared. Also this one to the left, then minus 18x is equal to 0. Okay, so from here, let's factor the left-hand side of the equation. So there is a common factor 3x. So factor out 3x, then x squared minus 5x. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 6 is 18, so minus 6 is equal to 0. So we have 3x and then trinomial. So let's factor the trinomial. So x times x, 6 is 1 times 6, and the minus sign, negative sign on 6. Then this is x, this is negative 6x, the sum is negative 5x, same as the term in the middle. So we can rewrite this as 3x times x plus 1, x minus 6 is equal to 0. So we will set this factor to 0, this factor to 0. Here's another factor x equal to 0, then x equals 0. And 3 cannot be 0. 3 is always 3. So 3 stays there, but from the first factor x, you can set this x equal to 0. So we found one value of x, which is 0. So if x equals 0, then this product is 0. And then or the second factor, x plus 1 is 0. So set x plus 1 is equal to 0. Or what? This factor, x minus 6. So set x minus 6 equal to 0. So from here, from the second equation, minus 1 each side, so x is negative 1. Plus 6 each side, then x equals 6. So there are 3x values. One is x equals 3, x equals negative 1, or x is 6. So the solution to this equation is x is 0, negative 1, or 6. So there are 3 x variables. Okay, let's try next example. Okay, this example has an equation whose right side is 0. So we will factor the left side. And this one has 4 terms. So 4 terms, and there is a common factor x. So let's factor out x first. Then x cubed plus x squared minus 4x minus 4 is equal to 0. And the parenthesis has 4 terms, so why don't we try factoring by grouping. So factor by grouping, then x times, let's put a big bracket. Then from the first 2 terms, we can factor out x squared, then x plus 1. And from the second group, factor out negative 4, then x. Since we factor out negative, we have to put the negative sign. Change the sign. So plus 1. Bracket and equal to 0. Then from this bracket, there is a common factor, binomial factor, so x plus 1. So factor out x plus 1 and then parentheses. Okay, then write the leftover, so x squared minus 4 equal to 0. Now there's a bracket outside, but we don't need this bracket outside. We don't need this bracket actually, because this is all product, so we don't need this bracket. It's just like this. You have a times b times c. Here is parenthesis. You want to put a bracket, for another bracket. This is redundant, so we don't need it. So And then let's check each factor whether we can factor it again. And this binomial is difference of squares. So yes, we can factor that binomial again. So this is x squared minus 2 squared. So this is a plus b, a minus b, the difference of squares. Here is x and 2. So x plus 2, x minus 2 is equal to 0. So the left side of the equation, there are, how many factors are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that we can set each factor equal to 0 and find x. So from the first one, x equals 0. From the second factor, x equals negative 1. From the third equation, third factor, we have an equation, so x equals negative 2. Move this one to the other side, change the sign. And the last factor is equal to 0, then x equals 2. So there are 4 values of x. So there are 4 solutions. So 0, negative 1, negative 2, or 2. So these are the solutions. Okay, in this word problem, there's a rectangular room, and the area of the rectangular room is 192 square feet. And the length is 4 feet more than the width. So this length, the expression for this, the length is 4 feet more than the width. Then since this is more than or less than, then we're going to write the second expression first. So w plus 4. If this is less than, then it will be w minus 4. Okay, 4 minus 4 is 4 minus w is different. 4 plus w is different. Always write the second part first. If this is more than or less than. So the expression for the length is w plus 4. The length is w plus 4. And since the area is given, then we can use the area formula. The area formula is length times the width. Length times the width. So the area, the value of the area is given 192, and L times W. So L can be written in terms of W plus 4. So we can write it like this. So the area is 192. Okay, so L times W. The L times W is the area, and the length is W plus 4, and then W is the width, and the area is equal to, area is 192. So we have an equation like this. Okay, always when you write an equation, make sure that we are using only one variable. Only one variable. Don't use the variable L, because L can be written in terms of W. So make sure L is replaced by W plus 4, so that we have only one variable in this equation. And then solve for W. So in this case, okay, this is an equation, but one of the side is not 0. Okay, the left side is factored, but the right side is not 0. So we have to distribute and then move all terms to one side and make sure to write one side of the equation is 0. So factor the left side, then w squared plus 4w is equal to 192. And then move 192 to the left. It's equal to 0. Now we gotta factor this. Can you see here the length is 4 more than the width. 4 more than the width. So always 4 more. If W is 10, then L will be 14. So the difference between the length and the width is 4. The difference is 4. So when we find the combination, find the two factors. Okay, W squared is W times W. So let's find the two factor of whose product is 192. 192, there are so many factors. 1 times 192, and 2 times what something, and 3 times something. There are so many, but make sure the difference is 4, because the length is 4 more than the width. So difference of two factors has to be 4. So let's find the possible two factors. So how about 16 and 12? Okay, 16 and 12. 16 and 12 is 192. This is 12, 70, 12, so 192. And the difference is 4. So this may be the right pair of two factors of 192. So we can write it as 12 times 16 and put the negative sign. So in order to make it plus positive, the negative sign should go on the smaller number. So this is negative 12x, this is 16x, the sum is 4x. W, right? W, so 4W. And the 4W is same as this. So this is equal to, so this can be written as W minus 12, W plus 16 is equal to 0. Okay, make sure we use negative 12 and 16, because the difference is 4. And other combinations does not have difference 4. The difference is different. Okay, so from here, set each factor to 0. Then W minus 12 is 0. So from here, W equals 12. And from here, W plus 16 is 0. Then W is negative 16. And W is a length. So always the length is positive. So we cannot use W. W cannot be a negative 16. So eliminate negative 16 from the length of the W. So the width has to be 12 feet. So width is 12 feet. Then the length is, so from here the length is W plus 4. So W is 12. And then plus 4 is 16. So the length is 16 feet. Length is the 16 feet. And the W is 12 feet. Okay. So in this example, make sure to write an equation. Since it shows the area, right? Use the area formula, x plus x times W, L times W. And also, when you write an equation, make sure you use only one variable. In this case, W, the width. So when you solve this, distribute and collect all terms so that one side is equal to 0. And then factor the left-hand side. And one of the hints is when you find two factors, since the difference is 4, make sure these two factors has difference of, the difference is 4. Okay, and then also when you find the W values, since these are the dimensions, the length cannot be negative, so eliminate the negative value from the solution. So only select the positive value for that represents some the length. Length is always positive. Okay. Okay, here is a word problem. Okay, this is about a free-falling object. So here's a well, and you are dropping a little rock from the top of this well, and there is a water surface at the bottom, and the height between the rock and the water is given. The equation of the height is given, and then t is the time in seconds that the rock is released. So we are looking for how long does it take? How long does it take for the rock to reach the water? So once the rock reaches the water, so the distance from the well and the water is 64. Then we are looking for the time t. So how long? So we are looking for the time t. And once the height, h is the height between the water and the rock. So if the rock touches the water, then the height will be 0, because there's no distance between the water and the rock. So we will set h of t is equal to 0, h equals 0. So h is equal to 0, then the equation will be 0 is equal to negative 16 t squared plus 64. And from this equation, we can find t. And this is the time in seconds that the rock hit the water. Okay, so let's factor this one. So one side of the equation is 0, one side is 0. So let's factor the right side. So in order to factor this one, okay, let's factor out common factor, the greatest common factor, in this case, negative 16. Then t, since negative is factored out, change the sign, minus 4. So 16 times 4 is 64. Okay, and then, since this product is 0, we have to set this one is equal to 0. Okay, this is t squared. So this binomial, whenever we have a binomial, check whether this can be a difference of squares. So, and this one is a difference of squares because t squared minus 4 is 2 squared. So we can write this binomial as a difference of squares. So t plus 2, t plus 2, t minus 2. So from this each factor, set each factor to 0, then from the first factor, t plus 2 is 0, then t equals negative 2. Or the second factor, t minus 2 is 0. So in this case, t equals 2. Okay, t is in second and the time cannot be negative. So if t is a negative value, then we can eliminate it from possible solutions. So 2 is the only solution. So t is 2. 2 is the second. So after 2 seconds, you release the rock will hit the water in the well. So the answer is 2 seconds.